What up, everybody? You already know Big Lou tapping back in with what it do with Big Lou and FZR2, baby, baby. First time coming to the channel. Be highly appreciated if you sub, like, and share the channel with your family, friends, folks, people, gente, buddies, pals, amigos, amicos, panas, associates, asocios, camaradas, or comrades. Feel free to leave a comment, and I respond back to all the comments. This is a quick little video on La Barbie, right? You guys ain't aware who La Barbie is? That's a nickname that he picked up during high school football in Texas. And they gave him the name Barbie Ken, actually Ken doll, because his complexion, and he was like kind of like a pretty boy, right? So his football coach gave him the nickname Ken, and then it turned into La Barbie. He's from Laredo, Texas. If you guys don't know, that's a border city, border town with Mexico. And He had got into some trouble in his late teens after high school. In his early 20s, he had a few different cases. Excuse me. I even think he went to prison at some point. But majority of the cases he was catching back then were slap on the wrists. At some point, he gets involved with big marijuana shipments. The story is a lot similar to the one of that Johnny Depp played George Young in the movie Blow, where he starts off with marijuana and then it escalates into you know, rich man's high, that substance. And very similar story, but the difference is, it's very similar. The difference was that George Young started off in Mexico, and then he went on to Colombia and started hooking up pilots to work for El Padrino. I think they called him, right, Pablo Escobar, or Padrino. Um, and so this guy ends up going into Mexico. He at some point he hooks up with the Leva Beltran, and the Leva Beltran were hooked up with our partnership with Sinaloa, and then they had a falling out. And so La Barbie, and his real name is Edgar Valdez Villarreal. So in Spanish, it would be Edgar Valdez Villarreal, right? And he's currently about 49 years old. So I think he's born in 73. Anyways, he took a 49-year he took a 49-year plea deal, excuse me. I think he's 46. And so people, you could wonder, like, why would you take a 49-year deal at the age of 40? Well, let me make this clear too, people. He got arrested in 2010. He didn't actually get extradited to the US and start coming through the US federal, courthouses until I think it was 15 or 16. So he takes his 49-year plea deal, which at that age, 40 years old, 49-year plea deal, some people would say, what do you have to lose? Take it to trial, right? You got to do 90%. So on 50 years, you got to do 45 years. So, he's literally got to do 44 years and some change, right? Um, so anyways, people were trying to locate him on the BOP, which stands for Bureau of Prisons, which is the federal system, and he was housed in Coleman too. So Florida, there's two. They had two USP, United States penitentiaries in Florida, Coleman 1 and Coleman 2, and Coleman 2 housed, from my understanding, they housed a lot of guys that were like gang dropouts, probably people that have told, probably some weirdos, those funny charges, and he was there. But this is the thing, and a lot of people get this shit twisted. Just because a place houses a certain, considered gang dropouts, doesn't mean it can't get jiggy with it like that. 0 to 60 in a matter of seconds, where it's an all-out melee, full-fledged riot. You know what I mean? And people are getting stabbed and everything. It's still a United States penitentiary. So people get that misconception. People think that just because somebody decides to drop out of a gang and they maybe even testify, cooperate, that they just forgot everything they learned, all their training, with the gang, everything they learned, how to make weapons, how to, their security, how they, how they run their program as far as their personal security and the security within the collective, the group segment they used to be in, all the training with the weaponry training, how to make weapons, where to hit people at, where to make people, where to hit them to kill them faster, where they bleed out. All these things you learn while it's called mainline training, right? Everything you learn while you're behind the walls, means something. And if you actually done it, then you know how to do it, and you don't just forget all that stuff. You know what I mean? It's silly to people for people to think that. And that's why you don't run your mouth. Everything actions have reactions. You know what I'm saying? It's like a domino effect. You start running your mouth about certain things, you could be potentially, something could be come back your way. You know what I'm saying? And this ain't, I'm not promoting no violence. I just want this to be known here and now. This is for educational purposes only, and entertainment purposes only. Okay. Okay. So they couldn't find La Barbie, like I said, in the locator. Okay. So what that can mean is that, okay. And then let me bring this up too. There was a guy that was had a position in the government at one point with one president of Mexico. Then later, fast forward years later, that was under President Fox, Vicente Fox. And then President Calderon gets voted in, and he makes this guy, Geraldo Garcia Luna, Secretary of Security. So it's actually a cabinet position in the Mexican government by President Calderon. And it was said that this guy was taking bribes upwards, $2-3 million at a time when they were dropping off money to him, within the, you know, allegedly within the cartels, right? And uh, he ended up, I don't know what happened with his position. If he was replaced, he resigned, or whatever happened, or maybe that administration went out. I'm not sure who the current president of Mexico is. If it's still Calderon, I'm not sure. Calderon. But anyways, this man ended up leaving Mexico, moving to Texas, Dallas, Texas, where he gets arrested, and he's indicted, and he's fighting a federal case out of Eastern District of New York. So he's being housed over there at Brooklyn. I'm pretty sure at Brooklyn MDC, which stands for Metropolitan Detention Center. Okay, so it seems that La Barbie, Valdez Villarreal, he's not on the locator no more, the inmate locator. So most likely, what's going on is he's being moved. He's being housed somewhere else for his safety, and he's getting ready. The feds are going to bring him in. The government is going to bring him in, most likely to testify against Garcia Luna about the bribes he was taking when he was a member of Calderon, or Calderon, however you want to say it, administration. When he was a member of the cabinet, remember again, I said he was Secretary of Security. So he, allegedly he was taking these big bribes, and they were dropping off tons of money every time he was getting broke off. And so it seems that Barbie's going to come and testify about that. Possibly. I'm not, I don't know what's going on. Like I said, he's not showing where he's at. I don't know what's going on as far as that. I've seen in some comment sections, he was being called a rat. And then I've heard other people say he wasn't a rat. He just gave the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the rundown on how he was running his operation. So that is a form of telling. You're definitely telling on yourself, and most likely other people, other organizations, other people are using the same methods. So you're giving up info on how things are ran, which, you know, it's not really a good thing. But from my understanding, he was over there in Coleman too, and running things regularly. And he was a big honcho there, from what I've heard and read from other people's comments and stuff. And he was pretty much the man right there. So, he was still doing his thing. We'll have to wait and see what happens if he's ever called as a witness. But people need to realize that unlike New York and Chicago, where there's actually a federal building where, it's called the MCD, the MDC or the MCC, where it's all housing federal inmates fighting cases. Here in especially in Northern California, because I remember hearing some of Ryan Leone's story about when he caught his federal case out of LA. I remember him saying that some of the guys weren't federal inmates where he was housed. Some guys were regular county fighting state cases. So I'm not sure. I'm thinking it's just like here in Northern Cali. So as far as Northern Cali, you got this is where they house federal inmates that are fighting federal cases. Sacramento County Jail, Santa Clara County Jail, San Francisco County Jail, Alameda County Jail, and that's it. So there's 5 of them. So anything Stockton, California and north, you'll go to Sacramento County Jail for housing to fight your federal case. If you get busted, say 25 miles south in like Modesto area, you do not go to Sacramento County. You go to Fresno County Jail for your federal case. Anything, obviously, San Francisco, the Bay Area, you can be sent either to the East Bay or West Bay. You can be sent either to Santa Clara. You could be sent to either Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, or Alameda County. And then if you get busted in San Jose area, Salinas, Watsonville, you'll go to Santa Clara County. And even that don't even matter because guys that decide to cooperate, they won't even be housed where the main defendants are, or the number one defendant, wherever, where he's at or she's at, whoever's cooperating, usually they move them somewhere else. So I said that to say this is that the federal government has bed space rented out for federal inmates. You know what I mean? And another thing, I met this cat. He was a Latin king out of Brooklyn, New York, and you guys can go to the HBO documentary um, about King Tone, when they're following King Tone around and the Kings, when he caught his case just before he went in. There's an individual they talked to. He went by the name uh, King Teardrop, and he's a bald headed cat. And in the video, he's in his 20s, and he is from Brooklyn, New York, like I mentioned. King Teardrop. I know his real name. I don't want to say it, but anyways, um, when I met him in California Department of Correction in prison, and he was telling me when I met him, I said, "Well, where are you from in California?" He's like, "I'm not from California." I said, "I know that. I know you're from New York, but I'm saying, where were you living when you got busted in California?" He's like, "I never lived in California," and he goes on to tell me that his wife and kids lived out here, so that's why he transferred from New York Department of Corrections to California Department of Corrections, and he said he had to wait until somebody from California prison system, so the California Department of Corrections, Cali, wanted to go to New York Department of Corrections. So he had to wait for that, and then they swapped them, body for body pretty much. But after watching the documentary, and he used to tell me too that he was a high ranking member, that he was next in line. He said, now I don't know if he meant next in line after King Blood or if he meant next in line after King Tone. I'm not sure about that. Anyways, what I believe happened was, because he's talking in the video, I believe he gave up information on the organization as a whole, and they moved him to California for his safety. So, because he figured if they kept him anywhere on the East Coast, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, you know what I mean, Maryland, you know what I mean, probably Virginia. There's probably a lot of kings there now too. Virginia, Florida. He probably would have got touched. Rhode Island probably. He probably would have got touched. Connecticut. So all those, the Kings are, they got all that area sewed up. So they probably, and I don't know this to be true for sure, so don't mark my words on this, but considering the circumstances and what was going on as a whole, I believe that he was sent to California for his safety after he gave up whatever information he gave up. That's what I honestly believe. And it shocked me. I was like, whoa, when I seen him in the documentary. They speak to him, and like I said, it's very shortly, but he's in custody, and he's talking about the Pee Wee Kings and the Pee Wee Queens, and he's talking about some stuff, and he had a teardrop here, and that was his nickname, King Teardrop. But he don't have that teardrop. When I met him, that was gone. When I met him, he was in his late 30s. And they gave him 30 years, if I remember correctly. He was doing 30 years, and he had like half of it done. Half of his time was already done. Let me see, because I met him. He had a P number because I sent him money to his books for me a couple of times. He didn't owe restitution. He had a P number. So that was like 1998 when he got to the system here, and then when I met him, it was 2007. So it was about 9 years. He had about 9 years in when I met him in the system here in Cali. So I don't know how long he was locked up in New York before he got here, but I remember him telling me that he had like 14, 15 years in, and then he had like about half to go. So he's probably out now. Because you figure 2008 till now, that's what, 24 years. So most likely he's out now. If not, he's real short. And his dad used to even come all the way from New York to visit him for family visits. So they would let his dad, he would stay the whole weekend in the little 1 bedroom and because he was coming from so far away, I think it's over 700 miles, something like that. They give you even more time. So because of that, he was given another day where he could spend with his dad, and so I think that was cool. But I don't really know the real story about, with him, about why he was here in Cali. I don't know what he, if it's true what he said about, his wife and kids moved here, and that's, he had to wait for somebody to transfer, and swap from New York Department of Corrections where he was at to come to California, and the guy that was in California to go to New York. So I just said that to give a little background stories, a little background story on what they do, the federal government, right? Oh, another cat I met. They were, I'm not gonna say the names of the organization they were with, but they were Puerto Ricans out of Puerto Rico, and they got caught up on conspiracies to like bomb some things, right? And a lot of them end up getting sent to California Department of Corrections from the federal system. And the one I met has been down since in California. He's been down since 1993 or 94. He's been in the California Department of Corrections with the J number. So remember, people's California originally the numbers was it changed. Well, let's go back to the 60s. It was one letter, which in the 60s, early to they changed in 67, 68 to B's. So it was a number, and then five numbers after that. So it was a letter and five numbers. So it would have been, for example, A, 1 1 1 1, 0. You know what I mean? And those were A's. But at one point they used a letter and four numbers, four digits, and they changed it later. But that was the way it went. I'll break that down another time. I did it, on the years of when they changed. But the man had a J number, and like I said, he was in the system California since like '93, and him and about 20 other cats that were within their alleged organization on conspiracies, they all got life, and they were all sent to the California Department of Corrections from the federal system originally. You know what I mean? So they might have, I don't know really. I'm not going to say they were, it was for their safety, because there was just so many of them, and they're not, like this guy is in San Quentin. San Quentin's considered soft now, but at one point, it was it was rocking and rolling there all the way up in the 80s. You know what I mean? So things change like these prison systems, but what didn't change is what the point is of the video is federal inmates being moved to state facilities or county jail facilities for whatever reason. You know what I'm saying? They have things, like I said, they have bed space rented for these reasons, right? So with that said, Big Lou's tapping on out. And yeah, anybody that has anything to add to what I said or contradict what I said or anything to share with their federal prison experience or things they've heard from family members or friends, feel free to put it in the comment section. And like I always say, man, have an open mind and on people's situations. And another thing is, I always say you learn something new every day, right? So to me, they both go hand in hand. Be open minded, and you might get some information about things that you never knew before. So with that being said, Big Lou tapping on out.